All right, we're going to do a little travel in time here. I want you to think back to 3 years ago, okay? And whether you had a kid then, whether you had pelvic floor issues then, whether you were considering anything about down there, think back 3 years ago. Would you have bought an exercise program? Would you have taken an online class? Would you have done anything virtually online? Think about even how much time that you spent on Instagram 3 years ago. How many of you think that the answer is no, I wouldn't have bought any, English, nice. No, I wouldn't have bought anything. Or, yeah, you know what, I wasn't spending as much time on here, or I wasn't searching for an answer on social media. For myself, no, there's no way I would have bought anything online. No, and there wasn't the offerings. And I didn't turn to, I was just starting to kind of turn a little bit to social and my professional colleagues, just because I was finding voices that resonated in some of the things that I was thinking about. But 3 years ago, so we're thinking pre-COVID here, we just wouldn't have done it. You just wouldn't have done it. And so, I really can't talk today. I think I'm having a stroke. Fast forward, one of the biggest comments, questions in my DMs I get, Carrie, I already bought so many online programs and nothing's working. What should I do? Keep in mind, this is typically somebody who's already DM'd me questions and stuff over a period of time. Like, should I go to my doctor? I already went to physio. It didn't work. What do I do? And I think before we go forward and actually answer those questions, we have to go back and walk through our problem solving and our thinking and why we decided to do what we did at the time. And I'm going to rip back the curtain here on, online education and online sales and that sort of thing for a second. Is when you purchase a product from somebody, you're purchasing the promise, okay? And I'm seeing a couple patterns with postpartum women. If you don't have any pelvic floor issues, if you're not trying to get it back to anything specific, if you're just like, oh, I don't want to have problems, if it's more kind of basic prevention, you're buying based on whether you like that person, whether you like their vibe, whether you like their aesthetic. Like, if you generally resonate with what they're saying, you're really kind of buying a personality. Because I hate to say this, but like 95% of basic postpartum programs, so like weeks 1 through 8 to 12, with a couple of exceptions, and I'll highlight those, they're the same. Like, honestly, they're totally the same. There's very little variation in what you're doing that first little bit. You're buying that person, you're buying their voice, you're buying that aesthetic. That's what you are purchasing. And one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to pay for that membership, you're going to pay for that program, and you're going to do fine and think that was great, the best thing ever, and move on with your life. Or you're going to do it and it's not going to fulfill the promise, okay? And maybe issues start to come up. But again, generally those programs tend to work if you're not having any issues. If you are having issues, generally basic programs or those low price point programs, you get what you pay for. And again, there's not a lot of variation. You're kind of getting the same exercises with a couple of exceptions. Very basic mat work, don't really get up at the ground much, maybe some squats, maybe some lunges. Like, it's not rocket science, okay? If you do have problems though, those basic programs that promise a better core, a better this, a better that, like, unless you know the why of your symptoms, you're throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping it sticks. You're hoping that with your DIY mind of what I think is going on in my body, that this will be the answer, or whatever they say, okay, you just need more core, that's what's going to help with your prolapse, or you just need more core, that's going to help with your leakage. If you don't actually go back and understand the why, you're throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping it sticks. And I, over and over and over again, I run into these DMs of these women, and my heart breaks for them, because they're trying to patchwork together a solution that literally it is my actual job to problem solve and navigate solutions to these problems. And they're complex problems. And I think that's the other thing that women are getting sold down the river on, is that there's only one solution. Like, if you have pelvic organ prolapse or if you have leakage when you run, this is why. No, it's not that simple. God, I wish it were. Like, I really wish it were that simple. On the Holy Grail scale here, like, running is up here. I think the only thing that might top it is like trampoline park. Maybe trampoline park. And so we have women that are, for the first time, paying attention to their bodies, trying to navigate and become an armchair expert in the why. And they're being told, oh, you just need a stronger core. You just need a stronger core. Okay, let's just run this through for a second. If that's the case, okay, if a stronger core will fix your prolapse, will fix your leakage, will fix your symphysis pubis issues, will fix your diastasis recti. Tell me how the world can exist if that's the reason, but yet there's millions of other women in the world walking around with a weak core without those issues. Those two worlds cannot exist. And that's where it's okay for it just to be a little bit more complex, okay? And that's where we throw in concepts of pressure. We throw in concepts of what you walked into pregnancy with. We throw that together with how you've used your body your entire life. Like, we lay all the things out, because guess what? There's not just one reason. Your birth was not the sole reason. A weak core is not the sole reason that you have these issues. So if you are trying to get back to workouts, or even just trying to get started, and you're having leakage, prolapse, diastasis recti issues, pelvic pain, and you're trying to go for the quick fix, low entry point, $39.95 PDF, there's a pretty good chance it's not going to work, because you're throwing darts at a dartboard and you're hoping it sticks. You're trying to armchair expert something that's far more complex. Okay, and we need to acknowledge that this is happening, okay? And you can sit here and be like, well, they did it and they did totally fine. You and I can be sitting here having the exact same issues and have completely different reasons why. And I think we have to acknowledge that too. And that's where the comparison game, I can blow holes in that one all day long. You and I can have the exact same symptoms, completely different reasons why we got there. So we're going to have completely different reasons how we move forward successfully. And again, that's part of my superpowers, is being able to lay that all out. There's patterns that evolve, patterns that are easy for me to see because this is my literal day job. And I've experienced them myself, quite honestly. When you are versed in that, you can see it sooner. It doesn't take so long, okay? And so when I'm working with somebody, either here in clinic or in the Real Mom's Guide to Return to Run programs, that's where we start. Every single problem, I don't care what it is, pelvic pain, prolapse, leakage, it doesn't matter. We start with the why. And if you don't start there, if you start with, okay, let's just start up here, and you don't know what the why is, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball. If you start with that core program and think, well, let me just try this and see if it works, you're setting yourself back because you're not targeting, you're not being purposeful, you're not being intentional, you're not truly addressing what the reasons are for to have the problems. So if you're not intentionally addressing the reasons, then why do you think you're actually going to get results fast? So I kind of have to take a big breath when I read these messages, because people are like, oh, I spent all this money, I don't know what to do. And I'm literally sitting here saying, I'm like, yeah, I could have told you that. And so when you are looking for answers, if you're in that phase where you're like, I'm just starting to look, know that you need to have a program that addresses the why. Know that you need to have an understanding internally on what the why is, so you know that you're targeting the right stuff, talking to the right people. If you've already gone down that road and you're like, gosh, nothing's working, I'm broken. No, you've just barked up the wrong tree. If you do not know your why, and I ask people this, even when they've worked with other providers, when I do virtual consults, I'm like, do you know the reason that things are going on with you? Like, do you know why you have symptoms? I can tell if they know. I can tell, because if they explain it back and it just sounds like gobbledygook, guess what? You don't know your why, which just means you're always going to be chasing your tail. And I know this because this is exactly what I've gone through treating clients over the years, when you're just like literally, grabbing at straws and not having any tension, not having any focus. That's a lot of, hip rehab that I've had over the years. Kind of that's guided how I learn and work with my clients. You need to have a why. Okay. So back to the original question, 3 years ago, would you have bought a program? Would you have worked with somebody online? That wasn't even a thing. Like, people wouldn't do it. Now that they're doing it, there's so many choices. Understand that the bulk of them are the same, and understand the bulk of them, if you're actually going in and trying to look for actual change, you need to find somebody that looks at the why. We're going to go here, by the way. And if you don't have that, you're setting yourself up. So if you've already gotten to that point, you're like, hey, let's go. Thank you, COVID, for all these virtual options, which, trust me, I love. Please know, you will get further faster understanding the why, being able to lay stuff out, recognizing patterns, and being hyper intentional with what you work on to address your problems. So if you have worked online program, work with anybody virtually, and you've had like the general stuff, let me know kind of what was your experience. And again, this tends to be more people that don't have issues. Like, if you don't have issues, generally it's going to be pretty easy. If you do have issues, I think these basic online programs may not be all that they're cracked up to be, because they don't allow for that kind of understanding the why and dive into it a little bit deeper. If you have questions, if that's something you're like, yeah, you know what, Carrie, that sounds like something I did the general stuff, didn't work, and you want to dive into this a little bit further, hit me up in the DMs. I'm happy to chat with you about how to work with me here in the office, or virtually, or again, the Real Mom's Guide to Postpartum Return to Run. That's my 6-week program where you have direct access to me via our private Facebook group, but you establish from the beginning, you lay everything out for you. You lay out your resources, you lay out your issues. The framework is set up for you. I self-identify with my support what those issues are, what you need to hyper focus on, and how to set up a program that's tailored to you. So if you have questions about that, hit me up in the DMs. All right.